Hey guys, Alien Spartan 117 here. Today I would like to discuss a theory which I am honestly shocked does not receive more attention in the Halo community. Now, who all of you remembers the E3 2013 trailer which featured Master Chief walking through the desert? It ended with a Guardian rising up into the sky and him staring into the eyes of it. And then the word Halo appears. Now, in the community, everybody assumed that this was a Halo 5 trailer. But we never seen the letter 5 appear next to the word Halo. 343 would later confirm that this was not a trailer for Halo 5, but rather a trailer for the future of Halo. So this trailer could be representative of events and future Halo games beyond Halo 5. Now I want to start off this theory by stating that this trailer makes a lot more sense for a Halo 6 than a Halo 5. Reason being, Chief is covered up like he's hiding. Cortana's Guardians could be out there. Any sort of thing could be happening. This trailer makes more sense for a future direction of humanity in hiding on the run from Cortana's Guardians than it would have for Halo 5. And like I stated a minute ago, this is a video for the future direction of Halo, not to be represented as Halo 5. So, what could it be then? Why could Chief be in this desert? Well, first off, as many have speculated back whenever Halo 5 was nearing release, that this was the Ark, and that Chief was going to retrieve Mendicant Bias. That theory received a lot of traction in the community, and I'm sure many of you remember that. But the theory seems to have largely been forgotten whenever more information on Halo 5 was released and the game eventually came out and Mendicant Bias was nowhere to be found. So, taking a look back at the E3 2013 Halo trailer, let's take a theory for the future of Halo and resurrect basically what people were speculating back in early 2014. Now, as we know, Master Chief in this trailer is traveling through a desert. Everybody used to speculate that this looked like the Ark, and to this day I will contend that it still looks like the Ark. Nothing in this trailer looks like Halo 5. There is no environment in Halo 5 that looks anything like the environment represented in this trailer. This trailer features an environment which looks more like Halo 3 on the missions of the Ark than any other image in Halo. So let's propose for a second that Chief has went back to the Ark. With Halo Wars 2 coming out, the possibilities also increase. We know that humanity is back in the Ark. Who knows, maybe somehow the Spirit of Fire was able to link up with the Chief after the events of Halo Wars 2, and they were able to arrive at the Ark. So anyway, why would Chief be at the Ark? What is one person who could have the capacity to stop Cortana? I'm going to go with Mendicant Bias. Mendicant Bias was a Forerunner AI who turned against the Forerunners and sided with the Flood. But he was eventually defeated, and he would be buried in the sand by Bornsteller. He was buried on the Ark. Now, this is an extremely powerful AI. He was one of the most powerful AIs that the Forerunners ever produced. He was a contender class AI. Very, very powerful. He, in my opinion, would pose the best chance at stopping Cortana. He knows how to control Forerunner machinery, and he is far more advanced than Cortana is. Cortana may have access to the domain, but Mendicant Bias is still a much more powerful Forerunner AI than Cortana ever was. So, let's stop for a second, and I am going to play you guys a clip from Halo Rebirth. This is going to be, it was featured at the end of Halo Selenium. It was about 40 minutes of audio that you could listen to. And this basically recounts the tale of whenever Mendicant Bias was buried in the sands of the Ark. I want you to take a listen to this video, and I want you to listen very, very closely, and think and keep in mind the Halo 2013 E3 trailer. Take a listen.
Low and deep, we will see what that means. The great ship descended slowly through a vivid blue sky. Swarms of sentinels rose to greet it, thin beams of energy tethering it to them so they could guide it safely to the dock. Two massive angular arms rising from a pedestal on the desert sands. Reiser stood by Bornsteller's side, watching the proceedings from a platform high above the ground. He felt awkward in the presence of these forerunners, their bulky armor shaped for ceremony, but there were also a few other humans. As the ship approached, its drive pulsed deep notes that resonated within the Florian's chest. The dock arms reached up to meet it, locking onto the ship's broad hull and lowering it carefully into place. The ship touched down with a loud and final boom. Near the ship's bow, a three-winged door retracted. Cold fog welled up inside, puffed out, then swirled away in the rising heat. A hard light ramp flickered into being. Through the last of the inner mist emerged a massive structure, an oblong of silver-gray metal, its surface inscribed with glowing blue lines that pulsed in rhythmic patterns. The oblong descended to float just above the ground, where a flock of sentinels received it and dragged it forward with lighter tethers. Reiser was reminded of pallbearers carrying a coffin. The sentinels guided the oblong across the dock and down to another unfinished structure, still being shaped as they watched. Constructor machines like spiders spun hardening cocoons of metal around slowly ascending frameworks. Then Reiser understood. From below the rock and sand, out of the Ark's deepest foundation, a massive tomb was being prepared. A void had already been cleared to receive the coffin. Sentinels dragged it to the edge of the void, a strange grave in a place where there was no real dirt, no real planet, and latched it into the waiting frame. The oblong coffin's blue lines flowed outward, spreading into the confining struts. Reiser puffed out his cheeks and looked up at his tall companion. Bornsteller was observing the ceremony with a gray, grim face. Hard to read. All Forerunner fighters looked gray and grim to the Florian. When all was ready, Bornsteller raised his arms to address the tomb. Ancilla 05032 of the designation Mendicant Bias, you have colluded with the greatest enemy of the mantle. A deep voice issued from the coffin and was amplified across the platform, echoing from the ship, the dock, the tomb, even now being given its final touches. Those who pass judgment should first judge themselves. The voice now echoed off far bluffs and canyons. Judge themselves, judge themselves. A sin to fight a sin, said Bornsteller. A lesser evil to stop a greater one. That is the choice I was forced to make. You had no such excuse. You brought matters to this point. Why was I spared then? You are brought here to be sentenced. You have not been immediately destroyed because you may yet be needed. Your intimate knowledge of the flood makes you invaluable, should they return. But we can never trust you, never again allow you any latitude. You will be entombed here. Your process is locked, frozen into a single thought for all eternity. Absolution. Should you be needed, you may be reawakened. Should there be no need, you will be buried here until the end of living time. Then I will serve as a monument to your sins. That is what you wish for. Bornsteller shook his head. I wish only for the mantle to be upheld. I am penitent. I know that what I have done cannot be forgiven. I will accept my stasis with grace and await a time when I might redeem myself. Aye, so shall it be, said Bornsteller. He reached out to a pylon, spread his hand across the controls as they appeared, and closed his fist. The constructors finished their webs and sealed themselves into the tomb's fabric. Mendicant Bias's coffin was locked in place. The entire structure dropped slowly below the ground, into the void in the foundation metal, its blue lines pulsing more and more slowly. One thought for all eternity, said Mendicant Bias. His tone sounded almost wistful. Now the lights were fading, flickering, going dark. Atonement. The tomb turned black as night. The machine's final words spread across the false desert and echoed moments later from the false mountains. Bornsteller, Reiser, Trial, Chant, and all the rest watched silently as the last of Mendicant Bias, locked in eternal exile, was covered by sand.
Okay guys, that was Halo Rebirth, the Trial of Mendicant Bias. I want you to take a couple of notes from that excerpt. First off, two massive angular arms rising from the desert sand. Second one is that he was obviously buried on the Ark. And the third note that I want you to take note of is that Mendicant Bias claimed he wanted atonement. He wants atonement for his sins, for the atrocities that he committed against the Forerunners back in his day. There's more evidence to support this. In Halo 3, whenever Chief activates the terminals on the Ark, you will find that Mendicant Bias contacts the Chief and tells him that Chief will be his example to finally rectify himself to the Forerunners. What better way to atone for the sins that he committed over those 100,000 years ago than to stop Cortana's created? We all know that the rise of the created, at least in my opinion, is not part of the Librarian's plan. The Librarian seeks for humanity to rise to the top of the mantle. There is no reason why her plan should include an AI takeover of the galaxy. And Cortana has pretty much tried to establish a military occupation of the galaxy, pretty much like the Forerunners had back in their day, which is not the true vision of the mantle. So, Mendicant Bias, if this theory is correct, could be resurrected by Chief and used against Cortana. Mendicant Bias would be the best ally for what remains of the UNSC to take out Cortana. We do know that Mendicant Bias is obviously going to do his absolute best to atone for his sins. And you may be thinking to yourself, what Forerunners are still alive that he could atone to his sins to? You must remember that at the end of Halo Primordium, 343 Guilty Spark, yes, he's still alive if he wasn't aware of that, took over a UNSC ship and left. He was also at the Ark. He took off with the ship and he said that he was going to find the Librarian. He claimed that the Librarian was still alive and he was going to find her because he knew where she would be. So if the Librarian is still alive, that could also bring in a possibility of the Librarian and Mendicant Bias. Could you imagine that cutscene right now? Mendicant Bias and the Librarian reuniting, going against Cortana with Blue Team and Osiris standing there. This next Halo game could have some very epic moments with a lot of connected Halo lore. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Let me know what you think of this theory in the comments below. But this, in my opinion, is an excellent direction for the Halo series to go in. Chief travels to the Ark, resurrects Mendicant Bias, and Mendicant Bias atones for his sins by defeating Cortana, and pretty much saving the galaxy from a martial law state. So guys, go ahead, leave your comments below. Please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. And you may also see right here some other videos. Please go ahead, check out some other Halo related content. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video.